What's up, guys? Welcome to another fall episode. This is incredible. I'm gonna make some tea real quick, just chilling at camp. We came out here a few days ago and I did a video on that tripod. We were in this area, not this exact spot, but I really want to try to get some actual, like, decent fall images. But I alluded in that video that I would be struggling because we're in the Gila National Forest. This is southern New Mexico. It's incredibly beautiful out here, but it's not always photogenic. And I think, one second. I think that's always an issue out here. I love the Gila, I love the mountains, but it's just not always the most photogenic place in the world, even though it's just stunningly beautiful. But today I think I'm gonna really force myself to find something really decently photogenic. The problem is, like, these leaves are all like oak, predominantly oak, some other deciduous stuff, but we got a lot of different types of oak in here. And mixed in with the pine, of course, which don't change, but the oak, this forest is just so dense, and the oak trees are really hard to shoot. And then we have harsh light. I'm gonna definitely be aiming for backlight stuff. Yeah, and like camera lady said, a lot of the oak leaves, they're not as vivid as like the aspens are, but we do get some color in here. And we still got a surprising amount of green. It's the end of October, and I don't think it's quite peaked yet. It's still about 70 degrees right now. So I'm hoping that we'll have another good week, maybe even 2, to get out here and camp a few more times, to get a few more fall episodes in here. What I don't want to do is, I saw a bunch of places driving up here and driving around these trails and stuff that I want to stop, but I don't want to go like too many places in. I basically want to like focus on one tiny little area at a time. So hopefully I'm gonna be able to make some more content out of that. But I'm gonna make some tea real quick, and then we'll go check out this area and see what we can find. All right, so we've made it literally like 20 feet from the car. But that's what I said when I was like, I want to focus on like small areas, you know? I don't think I need to hike too far, but this is really cluttered. We've got some backlight coming in over the hills. Things that I love are, I love this rock. I kind of like that big oak tree, although all I'm getting is the stump. I mean, it's the tree, you know, like, you see that? Like, that's cool. So maybe that's kind of cool. That's kind of cool. It's really hard to gauge on the back of the screen out here, though, like what's going to look good. And I think one of the most difficult things for me in particular, that I struggle with in forest photography more than anywhere else, is that 3D to 2D translation. Like, you know, this stuff looks amazing, and camera lady's B-roll looks amazing because motion in film is easier to translate than just a straight up static 2D image. I really like that oak tree. I really like the moss on these rocks and this little bit of backlight. I just don't know if we're gonna make it work. I think I might pull out a polarizer. I'm also going to probably have to focus stack, so I might pull out a tripod and a polarizer, or I might just be really lazy and handhold focus stacking. But we'll see. I'm gonna start at f8 and photograph this and see if I get anything. Okay, so we made it another 5 feet. This is actually the tree that I came to this spot for, this trail for. I love this tree. I've always thought it had potential in fall, and I've always either come too early or too late. Last year it came too late. This year, too early again, which is good because that means we have time to try again. But if we look here, so I like this little patch of that right there. And then maybe I'm gonna move this around somehow. I don't know if I want to include that patch or if I want to just go tighter and then come in like, maybe like that. I don't know. I like the riverbed. I love this dried riverbed. I love how it wraps underneath, and I love how these trees kind of make a little A-frame archway back into it. So I'm gonna try that composition. I'm gonna try a couple wider with this guy in the front. I like it because it'll give some color and interest in the immediate foreground, but then there'll be kind of a dead zone right here. So we'll see. I'm gonna see, this is really important just in terms of like how I think as a photographer, and I'm not trying to sell anything here or anything like that. I mean, I am usually sponsored by me. But it's really the mentality of it. What I'm trying to say is like, I'm gonna use my presets. I made a bunch of fall presets and I used them, and one of them really helps shift the greens into yellows. And the reason I bring this up is because the more you know how to edit and the more you understand editing in Photoshop or whatever program you're using, the more you can see that in an image, like what you anticipate being able to do to it. So if I think there's a chance that I can get away with making this image look how I want, because I know how to edit, I know how I edit, I know what I can do, I'm going to use all of that in my mind to kind of help me in all of these areas out here. Like if I know that it's going to be really bright, some of this stuff I have to point up to, and I might want to get a sun star or whatever. There's no clouds today, a typical New Mexico day. It's really bright. The blue is really contrasty, and it's, you know, with the edges of the branches and everything, right above us. Birds. The point is, like, I know that it's going to be bright above me and it's going to be dark down here, and the brightness is going to create a lot of contrast and make a lot of things look really weird. So how do I deal with that in Photoshop? Well, I'm going to do the Orden effect. I'm going to maybe make the highlights a little softer with some luminosity, some masking. I'm going to add in extra sunlight, brighten it up, overexpose. All of these things, like if you know how to do that stuff, it's going to help you when you're walking around seeing things. So we're going to give this a try, and I'm going to see if I can make an image out of this. If not, I'll come back next week. Okay, so another 5 feet, we've made it. I really kind of like this scene. I like the cliffs back here. We've got a sun star, like I was just saying about, if you know, like there's two ways to shoot. Like you can get a little tighter and crop out, you know, and kind of aim down if the forest allows it. And then it won't matter what the sky is, you know, if you don't include the sky in your shot. Or if you're gonna go wide and get the sky in there, that's where I know I want a sun star because it's gonna help give interest to the sky. And then I know that I'm gonna overexpose that. I'm gonna, you know, Orden effect kind of thing, luminosity masking. So check this out. I really like this right here. We've got those trees on the top right. We've got the sun star. And then we've got these little rocks down here, and then the beautiful light on the cliff there, the exposed rock, everything. I really like that. So I think I can make that work. I'm gonna just do a 2-shot focus stack on the rock and then focus on the cliff. F16. I'm at 80th of a second right now. My ISO is kind of high. I'm at 2000. I don't really care because I'm handheld. If I wasn't being so lazy, I'd get the tripod out, but this is just, I think that'll work. When you do high ISO, are you kidding me? This Stellar's J right above us. When you're shooting high ISO, it's better in the daytime in scenes like this if you're going to go handheld, if you're overexposing or if you're properly exposed. If you're underexposing, that's when high ISO is really going to hurt you. But out here, if I have to shoot at 2000, especially with today's software and cameras and sensors and all that, I just don't care. Like, I'm going to get a nice image. And if I didn't tell you it was at ISO 2000, you would never know. So that's just something to keep in mind. Like, don't be so afraid of shooting high ISO in the daytime, especially if you know that you can get enough light. Now he's throwing things at you, camera lady. He just chunked an acorn at you. Okay, back to the shot. This is really cool. All right, I've definitely been struggling. I got a few things that you guys didn't see. This might be the last shot of the day, so check this out. This mossy rock stuff in the foreground, and then look, if I lean down a little bit, that golden tree right there, and then that just massive dead tree in the background. If I can figure out how to make that work, something like that, that's going to be really cool. So things that I'm looking for out here, either I want kind of like all shade and kind of intimate details and let the color pop within the shade, or, and that's usually for tighter shots, or I want to go wider like I did this, and I'll have the sky, or I've got a lot of Sunstar stuff. I don't know if the Sunstar stuff is going to work, but we'll go wide, we'll overexpose a little bit, we'll get that nice Sunstar. Let's go back to the studio, and since I talked about editing and stuff, I'm going to edit a couple of these with you guys so you can see, because I don't know if they're going to work or not, and I really want you to see the process and see like what I'm thinking, what I'm editing. So let's go back to the studio. Well, let's go back to camp first and get some tea, and then go night nights, and then go back to the studio. And I'll see you in a second. All right, so we're back in the studio. Trip was mostly a success. I mean, I think it's always a success when you get to go camping, especially in like perfect fall weather. In terms of images, I did end up getting 2, I think maybe 3 that I really liked. And the rest I think were just okay. I did actually already edit them because I was just really nervous that none of them would be any good at all. But let's jump in the computer real quick, because I do want to talk about, I'll kind of like briefly want to critique my own images so that you can get a better idea of like what's going on in my head and what I'm thinking about my own process, and like looking back on it through the editing versus what I was thinking when I was out there. Because oftentimes when I do this to myself, it helps me understand and figure out like what worked, what I was looking for that didn't work or did work, or what I need to do next time or whatever. This is one of those things where I just don't think it translated as well as like how pretty it was when I saw it, you know, in 3D to 2D. What drew me into it was this like rock half circle looking thing here, and then this just crazy oak, and just, you know, the way it's going everywhere. And then the color in between is nice. So you can see a little before and after. It definitely helped, but again, nothing amazing. I would say though that this image is probably in the top half of the images that I took. So it's not horrible. So this one really popped for me, the reds and the yellows down here. The way that the leaves fell in this circular pattern, I may have overdid it with the editing. And that's okay. I just took some of the detritus out there. But maybe I pushed this a little too hard for the dark areas, so I could maybe bring that back a little bit. Something like that, actually. This one is plausibly okay. I don't know, it might grow on me or it might not. I don't know. I passed by this tree on the way up, and I know this tree very well, and I always walk under it. And I've been looking at it for years, and I don't know, I've never really photographed it. And then all of a sudden, I see the sun. I see what caught me was these rays, though, the light and then the shadow and the rays, the way that they were making the rays through the ground here. And then that led me up to the backlit oak. And then, of course, I figured out I could put that sunstar there. And boy, that just did it for me. And I just think this is low key, I think maybe one of the better ones in my mind that I did. Again, every single one of these are handheld and very lazily, high ISO, handheld bracketed and focus stacked. This actually was a single image though. This wasn't focus stacked. So we can see there's kind of the before and the after. And maybe this would have been better suited with, you know, because like some of this stuff, this is blown out back here, you know, on this rock, and I could have been a little more meticulous, but when it comes down to it, I still get the overall feel, and I just don't care as much sometimes about nitpicking the technicals with, you know, getting every single thing perfect. So I'm pretty happy with this one. This is one of those first ones that I did in the beginning of the video, and I think this one came out okay. I think it's just a pleasant scene to look at. The sky is pretty harsh. You can see a lot of the blue, and it's not chromatic aberration so much as it is contrast, because I got rid of all the chromatic aberration, but it just creates a really harsh contrast when you have scenes like this through the sky, through the trees. But what I really liked about it is the backlit oak trees here. I love the shape of these two oak trees. The sunstar, of course, again, helping to distract from the rest of the blown out yucky sky. I really love this cliff, and I like these rocks here. What I don't like is there's too much, I think, middle ground with nothing going on, other than at least we did have the color. The little leafy guys down here with providing the color, they helped. If those weren't there, I would say this is too much negative space. But overall, I think this is all right. This is one of those images that just makes me feel good, at least in terms of like, it's not a portfolio image, but it makes me feel good just remembering the scene and just thinking about being there and sitting right here and just staring at the scene. This is one of those images that makes me feel that way. Same thing with this one. The only good light was right here, and that's what caught my eye, was this tree back here lit up, and then kind of like, you can see it's in a little bit of a valley kind of, and it's kind of pushing you into this tree, but there's so much just distractions everywhere, and this is another one that didn't translate. I really wanted this, like the leading lines of this dead tree and this rocks here kind of pushing you in, but you just lose it. There's no definition, and heavy vignetting to help just guide a little bit, but this whole middle area is just kind of muddled. And so that became really tricky. Maybe with more time, again, in the same exact spot, if I could spend like, an hour instead of like 2 minutes, like right here on this tree with this thing in good light, maybe I could figure out a better composition, but that's what I ended up getting here. So this is the second time I shot this on the way back, and I tweaked my composition a little bit more. The sun was way lower, so I got this beautiful sun star right on the top of the hill. It softened up this, or at least it made it to where I was able to soften it up pretty nicely with some luminosity Orton type of deal. And even though there's no kind of direct light on here, it's indirect, but it just feels a lot better. I think the mood of this image makes me much happier. So here was the raw, but this is the raw after I had already tweaked it in camera raw with my preset and everything. And then there's with Luminar, and then there's with a little extra pretty hard vignetting. So this ended up being one of two of my favorite images. And then my last and most, probably, I don't know which one's my favorite, but I think this was the last shot that I showed in the video where I said I was wrapping it up. And this ended up being probably tied for one of my two favorite shots. I'd still like to go back out there and have a little more time with perfecting this composition. I really loved this big dead tree and the way that it was so much bigger than this yellow tree, and I loved the yellow tree, but I love the way this big dead tree above here branched out. But I couldn't quite squeeze it all in with the way that this was, and I decided to get lower again to kind of get rid of this middle ground here and just really kind of accentuate this mossy rock formation sticking out here. So here's the before and the after. So the sun was a little farther back, and the light was coming from this direction, so I did add a little bit more light to emphasize and to kind of distract from this, because I don't like the sky up here, and that's all I could think to do to really kind of distract from that. And you'll notice the vignetting is not in the sky either, because I didn't want to darken that after having just brightened it. So the vignetting is only down here, and I think that helps a little bit in this case. This section bothers me quite a bit. It's pretty yucky, and there's not much I could do to it other than keep it bright. But I think overall I'm still pretty happy with this image. This was a 3-stack shot, again handheld. I focused here, here, and then here, and then just aligned them, focus stacked, and then took it in a Luminar and added the luminosity, the Orton effect, the extra light, and then took it back into camera raw and added the vignette. All right, so that's a quick look at the images that I got, the great ones and the not so good ones and everything in between. And hopefully that just gives you an idea of like what's going on in my head, like, because everything that I just said, I was thinking while I was out there, because knowing what I was going to do to those images helped me see in my head as I was out there. It helped me see the scenes. So what did you guys think? Let me know if any of those were any good at all, or if I shouldn't have even bothered because the light was just so harsh. Actually, you know what? That's a bad way to think. Like, I definitely should have bothered, because the more that you go out there in challenging conditions like this with whatever, like in my case, like I definitely struggle with woodland photography anyways. And so if I don't have like perfect conditions, then I really, really struggle. But the more I go out and do it, the more I train myself to see things that, because I've walked this trail 1,000 times. I mean, this is one of my very local trails, very close to my house. I've seen it in every condition. I've seen these trees for years and years and years. I've seen it change. But the more I go out there with the intent of trying to photograph something and forcing myself to take the images and then forcing myself to edit the images, even though I know that they're not going to be portfolio images, the more I do that, I think the better I get, and the more I can kind of like tunnel vision it down, narrow it down to be able to see the things that I want and capture the things that I want. All right, well, I'm just rambling at this point, so I'm gonna wrap it up here. If you guys have any questions or comments about the images or anything like that, let me know in the comments down below. If you're still here and you haven't already, definitely hit the like button, subscribe. Those are the best things you can do for the channel. I really appreciate it. If you love what I do and you're interested in a little bit more, check out the channel memberships for a couple bucks a month. It really helps support the channel and it goes a long way to help Camera Lady and I keep this rolling. And you get some extra content, tutorials, behind the scenes, image critiques, all that kind of stuff. But that's it for now. I did film one. I filmed actually 2 more videos from this camping session. So I was out there for a few days. So those will be coming up soon. But now it's tea time. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.